Hi, this is Danny Doyle, and I am here with something a little bit different. Anyone who has been keeping up with Fire Emblem news, community speculation, etc., probably knows that it is largely believed that a Fire Emblem 4 remake is incoming, and in fact was originally intended to be released between Three Houses and Engage. There's a lot of evidence in both games for this, and also the prominent leaker who leaked Engage and was right about everything said that FE4 remake was also coming, so, you know, that's also adds to the evidence. And at one point I do want to make a video going over the evidence in both Fire Emblem Three Houses and Fire Emblem Engage that point to an incoming or possibly intended to have already happened FE4 remake, but that's not what today's video is about. Today's video is a kind of weird theory crafting of what if the FE4 remake adds personal skills to the cast. Personal skills are something that originated in Fates. They were not present in Shadows of Valentia, but they have been present in Three Houses and Engage, and add a little bit of flavor to these characters. They were also present in Warriors and I believe Three Hopes, although I haven't played that yet, which indicates that they are considered to be at least somewhat of a mainstay of modern Fire Emblem. I personally really like personal skills, even if they're not the most high-impact thing, like, for example, Goodie Basket from Raphael. I like that they add a little bit of flavor to the character and give a minor gameplay story integration thing, which I think is really cool. Now, this video is just intended to be a bit of fun as to coming up with what I thought would be cool personal skills for them. As such, I focused much more on the characterization of these units, as opposed to balancing things to be the peak gameplay balance for everyone. I think this closely mirrors Intelligence Systems' approach to personal skills as well. One last thing is that while creating these skills, I decided to just assume there would be blanket no changes to the mechanics other than adding personal skills. For those who don't know, FE4 has a lot of unique mechanics, such as the way crit works, or the lover point system, etc. And while some of these will probably be changed in a remake, I thought it was opening too many hypothetical can of worms to theorycraft additional changes in addition to the personal skills. So I stuck with the personal skills. With that out of the way, let's dive into Generation 1. For Sigurd, the Lord of Generation 1, I gave him Reckless Charge. If unit moves 9 or more squares, gain Strength +3 and Defense -1 until unit's next turn. I thought that this was a good representation of how Sigurd kind of blindly charges ahead and it gets him in trouble. The defense penalty in particular representing his downfall that sort of comes from his reckless charges. Alec, I said his Lord's right hand. If unit is within 3 or less tiles of Sigurd, both gain +15 hit. Noish, I said his Lord's left hand. If unit is within 3 or less tiles of Sigurd, both gain +15 avoid. Alec and Noish, really their only story contributions are they appear during prologue and they talk about how it's their duty to continue to go with Sigurd wherever he goes. So I felt like that's a decent way to have that show up as their personal skills. It feels like a sort of mirroring of the 2 Butler Maid bonuses from Fates and the Kalan and From bonuses from Engage, so I drew some inspiration from that. Arden, I gave the Power of Pursuit. Adjacent units may double as if they had Pursuit. This was just pure meme tier, but Arden's personality is kind of as a meme character, so I felt that was appropriate. Azel, Fiery Passion. If a female unit is within 3 spaces, both this unit and that unit ignore weight penalties from fire and swords and deal +1 damage. I felt like since Azel came to battle because of his fiery passion, or rather his crush on Aideen, that was kind of an appropriate thing for him, and it helps with the significant drawback of fire weight that he faces after the prologue that really stops him from viably doubling people. I don't think it's the only problem that Azel has as a unit, but I felt like this would really help him, and he kind of needs the help. Lex, odd one out. Deals +3 damage against an enemy using the same weapon type. So, for example, axe versus axe. I felt like this fit Lex's personality because he's kind of rebelling against his family, and in particular, like, his evil uncle. So yeah, he's the only good axe user as well. Just odd one out. Quan, lead by example. If a unit within 3 spaces is using the same weapon type as Quan, both Quan and that unit gain plus 10 hit, and that unit deals plus 1 damage. I felt like Quan's role in the story is... Well, I mean, he has quite a few roles in the story, but the one that I like the most is him serving as a mentor to Finn, and then Finn, in turn, serving as a mentor to Quan's son. I really like that sort of character arc that they go on together as a sort of family. You know, Finn is in some ways an adoptive son to Quan, and then Leif is in many ways an adoptive son to Finn. So I felt like I wanted to have their personal skills feed into that. And with that in mind, I gave Finn separate personal skills for Generation 1 and 2, in a similar manner to how Three Houses has the Lord's and Byleth's personal skills evolve. So in Generation 1, Finn has Loyal Squire. If this unit is within 3 tiles of Quan or Ethlin, Quan and Ethlin deal plus 2 damage, and that's to reflect that he's sort of helping them out, but they are the ones on the front lines. And then in Generation 2, I gave Finn Loyal Protector. If this unit is within 5 tiles of Leif or Nana, Leif and Nana take minus 4 damage. And so that was to reflect his change of role. Previously he was a squire and helping the others fight, and now he's the protector. And it extends the range to it because it's a more important role to him, I felt like. But also it's purely defensive, and it's to protect the other units, or the other characters, more like. Ethlin, I gave Live to Serve. For those who aren't aware, this is a skill that was introduced in Fates and was also present in Three Houses. When healing another unit with a staff, regain HP equal to the amounts healed. This one isn't really a character thing for her, although I do guess that she's kind of showing up to help her husband and her brother, so in some ways Live to Serve fits, but it's more just there's so many healers in this game, especially when accounting for substitutes, and there's only so many healing skills you can give before you have to dip into the well of someone gets Live to Serve. There's even precedent for it being a personal skill because it was Mercy's personal skill in Three Houses. It's not exciting, but I think it works for her. Midir, easy target. If the enemy has the option to attack unit at both 1 and 2 range, enemy will always choose to attack at 2 range, even if 1 range would be uncountered. Also, provoke. So, that's a lot of words. It's basically going off of the meme that enemies in FE4's AI seem to really like attacking Midir at 2 range. Yeah. Again, it's another meme skill. Midir is another one of those meme characters. But I think it fits. I think it fits, especially because the only plot-relevant cutscene that Midir is in is Midir getting beat up for being kind of an easy target while trying to protect and failing to protect Aideen. So I think it works. Ira, uneasy ally. If 3 or more allied units are within 3 tiles, unit deals plus 4 damage and takes plus 2 damage. I felt like this was appropriate for Ira because she is going along with Sigurd's army, but she's from a nation that Granville is at war with. Granville and Isaac are at war, off screen, but it is the major geopolitical conflict that sort of is in many ways the inciting incident for FE4. I know that Aideen's kidnapping is what directly gets Sigurd involved, but it's what kicks off the political scheming that is more of the plot of FE4. So the fact that she is fighting in an army that is kind of working against her country, and she's trying to protect the prince of that country who's... Yeah, I felt like Uneasy Ally makes sense for her. She gets a boost, but also a downside for being surrounded by people who are kind of her enemies and kind of her allies. Do. Don't ask where I got that. When using the give command on a non-lover ally, luck % divided by 2 chance to keep half the gold given However, the unit you give still receives the full amount of gold. This effectively gains you money out of nowhere. I felt like this was appropriate because Do is a thief, but he doesn't really revel in the thievery. In multiple conversations with people who he gives gifts to, he just sort of says like, oh, I found this, don't ask me where I got that. So the idea of him just sort of finding more gold, like, it fell off a truck, felt appropriate to his character. Aideen, Inspiring Heal. When using a staff on an allied unit, that unit gets +2 speed, +4 luck until next turn. Does not stack with itself if you give her a dance. This is just Inspiring Dance, but on a healing staff. I feel like healers are kind of hard to come up with personal skills for, especially in this game where they're not typically going to get to combat stats because it's level 20 in order to promote. So maybe it's a little bit overpowered, but I think that just speed and luck, especially considering you need pursuit to double and most enemies don't have pursuit, is not the most overpowered thing, but it's potentially useful. Jamka, Forest Banditry, doubles terrain bonuses. I just stole Covert from Engage and gave it to the unit who, in character, should be spending time in the forest. He's even an archer, so it really is just Engage. But it makes him harder to deal with when you're fighting him in the forest, so if you choose not to recruit him and want to kill him for whatever reason, like if he dropped a killer bow or something, that would be a pain in the butt as a red unit. Deirdre, Mysterious Woman. At the start of player phase, units within 3 tiles regain 20% of their HP and are cured of status ailments. This is, I think, similar to, if not identical to, Sadal's ability in Engage. I have liberally stolen things from previous Fire Emblem games, but so do the IS devs. And, yeah, I just think, she's mysterious, she's a healer. There's only so many healing personal skills you can give. Holen, Gladiatorial Champion. Unit deals +3 damage and always goes first in arena matches. I feel like because Holen was, you recruit him by defeating him in the arena, and he was supposed to be, the best arena fighter, even though mechanically, in-game, he's not. His replacement is actually much better than him once you defeat him. So it's kind of meta to have a weak character defeat him so that they don't have to face his replacement. But that aside, flavor-wise, he's supposed to be really good at fighting in the arena, so this gives him 2 major advantages, especially because oftentimes units are walled by Myrmidons, who tend to, because they're faster, go first and be able to really snowball things for your units that are struggling to go through the arena. So I thought this would be, a helpful but minor thing for him. Ratchasis, Noble Spellblade. When using a physical weapon, magic % chance to hit enemies on res instead of defense will not trigger if enemy res is greater than defense. I felt like this was kind of a creative way to lean into the magical end of Ratchasis before she promotes to Master Knight. Obviously, she can use tomes once she promotes, and it kind of becomes redundant at that point, because you'd probably rather use a tome to fight against a unit who has lower res than defense in that case. But, as an unpromoted unit, especially if you're not grinding her to 20 on her join map, it's potentially kind of helpful. Beowulf, Get What You Pay For. Deals +1 damage for every 10,000 gold in his inventory. Beowulf is one of the few mercenary units who you have to pay with actual gold, and I thought it would be really cool if that was reflected in his personality of, fighting harder the more you pay him. So this can potentially be +5 damage if he has a full inventory of gold. That, of course, means you're not spending it on rings and stuff, so potentially overshadowed by that, but, I don't know, maybe you want those rings on other units, and he doesn't really have anything to do with his gold. That's something I also find is you end up paying him, and then he's kind of a mediocre unit that you don't want to spend money on to get better weapons, so he has all that gold for no reason. and this is potentially a reason for him to have that gold. Lewin, Lone Wanderer. If no allied units are within 3 squares, gains plus 20 crit. Lewin has inherent crit from the critical skill, and he starts out in an area where if you want to get the bargain band, you kind of have to have him race and fight on his own. So gameplay-wise, it would become immediately useful, and he's supposed to be, like, wandering kind of alone-ish, trying to avoid... Like, he's the Wandering Prince archetype. So I felt like the idea of making him benefit from being alone was good. And since he has inherent crit, it's one of the few personal skills that I can actually add crit to and not feel bad about doing so. Because I really didn't want to have personal skills give people crit who didn't have it inherently. I did that a couple of times, but I really tried to avoid it when possible. Sylvia, Large Audience. Sylvia and all units within 3 tiles of Sylvia get plus 5 hit, plus 5 avoid for each unit within 3 tiles of Sylvia. So it's a snowball effect. The more people you have gathered around her, the greater the bonus they all get. In practice, this is probably not super useful unless you are at a choke point, because you are kind of they have to be within 3 tiles of Sylvia, so you're kind of requiring your dancer to be close to the front lines for people to benefit from them. But it's flavorful, you know, she gets a large audience because she's a dancer. Erin, Oblivious. Ignores enemy terrain bonuses and effects of the weapon triangle. I feel like this is a fairly minor thing, because not often do enemies have significant terrain bonuses, especially in Generation 1. The weapon triangle is actually kind of a big deal, though, but there's not a lot of axe units until, I guess, Chapter 5, after Erin joins. But it's in character that she's super oblivious to Lewin's interest in her, so I felt like that was a good way to do that. I thought about doing something related to her, like devotion to Lewin as like a loyal knight, but decided instead to go with the I don't realize that he's in love with me until really, really, really late. I don't know, I find that funny. Claude, Doom Foretold. Magic % chance to prevent all damage to an adjacent ally at the cost of 10% of their own HP. So this is a reference to the fact that Claude actually knows about the massacre that's going to happen at the end of Chapter 5. He says so in some of his lover conversations, that he's aware they're all dying. And so he's willing to sort of sacrifice himself to protect others because he knows they're all kind of doomed anyway. So I thought that that was a, you know, kind of flavorful way to... It's kind of like Chi Guard, now that I think about it. It wasn't really what I was thinking of is Chain Guard, but it kind of is similar to Chain Guard, only percentage-based. But yeah, I'm sticking with it. I'm not changing it. Tilt You. Lightning never strikes twice. Deals plus 3 damage to enemies at full HP. I didn't really have anything for Tiltyu's personality that didn't feel like it was treading on other people's personal skills, so I just went with lightning never strikes twice. You know, it's a sort of a saying that is actually not true. Lightning often strikes twice. But I also thought that it was, yeah, it's fun. Deal more damage to people at full HP. It's simple, but it's fun. Bridget, We Don't Pillage. When visiting partially destroyed villages, treat them as if they have 2 less destroyed houses. So this is a reference to the fact that Bridget, as a pirate leader, had the very unpirately model of We Don't Pillage, and she didn't like having her pirate band of pirates pillage villages. So I guess it's potentially useful because she has a really expensive weapon that she probably wants to repair to go into Generation 2 at the very least. But it's much more focused on flavor than it is on gameplay, and that was my intention with this list. And I'm pretty happy with this one because it also feeds into one of the unique mechanics of Fire Emblem 4 is the destroyed villages. So I like it. I'm proud of this one. Diving into Generation 2, I took the approach with Generation 2 of trying to, in some cases, have mirrored skills between siblings, and in some cases have mirrored skills between characters and their substitutes. I didn't always do this, but when it felt like it was something I could thematically appropriately do, I decided to do so. With that in mind, Seliph, hero of the people, can heal on churches and castles without spending any gold. This feels like the most minor of any personal skill, but it is very much in flavor. Seliph is the hero of the people. Why would the people charge him money to help him out if he's supposed to be like their icon of hope? Like, that's the reason that Leaf's rebellion joined Seliph. That's the reason that Shannon joined Seliph, is he is the hero of the people. He's the symbol of hope. So the people help him, and they don't ask for any money in return. Larsai, I gave Not Overshadowed. If adjacent to an ally of higher level gains plus X strength and defense, where X is half the level difference between her and the adjacent ally. This was in reference to the fact that she is supposed to be overshadowed by Shannon, both gameplay and story-wise, and she feels insecure by this because she's trying to live up to her cousin's reputation, and her cousin is incredibly powerful. Ulster, overprotective. If 2 or more lower level allies are within 3 tiles, doubles proc skill rates and gives 5 crit. This was one of the skills where I gave critical to a unit who does not at least inherently have critical, just based on their personal. I felt like 5 crit was not that much, and it simultaneously feels in flavor with doubling the proc skill rates, that being Astra, Soul, Luna, etc. And I also think that it's incredibly funny. Like, the Sword Twins, their whole thing is proc skills, like super overkill combat. So, yeah, I don't know. I thought like it was fun. Radney, hot-headed. When damaged by an enemy attack, gains plus 2 strength until next turn. Stacks. So you can theoretically go infinite. Well, not infinite, because you have a limited amount of HP. But there is no cap to the amount of strength you would gain by hot-headed, other than your HP. I specifically said damage by an enemy attack because in case there was any sort of like devil sword or any sort of self-damage, I didn't want people to be able to abuse it and just gain a bajillion strength. Yeah, and it lasts just until the next turn, so I don't think it's super powerful, but it will make her kind of able to enemy phase better. Doesn't help with her defense, like, I don't know, flavorful. She's supposed to be hot-headed, and this makes her get really angry. The more angry she gets, the more damage she does. I felt like it was fun and flavorful. Dalvan, fight me, not them. If there are no allies within 4 tiles, doubles the proc skill rates and gives plus 5 crit. So this is mirroring Ulster, who Dalvan is the substitute for. However, while Ulster is characterized as like being really worried about everyone else and overprotective, Dalvan just doesn't even want anyone else to engage in the battle. I got this information from the Pitfalls wiki. I finally found its purpose. It gives me actual story information and character information about the substitute characters who nobody knows anything about. So if that's not accurate, blame the Pitfalls wiki, not me. But Dalvan specifically doesn't want anyone else, like he tells them to stay in the castle, whereas Ulster is going out there to protect them. And I don't know. I felt like making them have mirroring skills because these are similar personality traits but a different approach was a good way to sort of story gameplay integration that. Lana, her mother's daughter. When using a heal staff on an ally unit, ally gains plus 1 defense, plus 4 speed, plus 8 luck. This is a notably better rally than the Aideen rally from Generation 1. However, I also think Generation 2 tends to be harder, and so having access to a better rally felt appropriate to me. She's characterized as following in her mother's footsteps, because that's what a lot of Gen 2 characters are. They're kind of just characterized as following their parents, especially if their parents are canonically alive. Aideen is canonically alive and in the home castle. Lana is just following in her footsteps, so giving her a similar but improved version of that personal skill felt appropriate. Mana, Nurturing Spirit, double staff ranges. So for standard staffs, this changes it from 1 range to 2 range, and for things like Physic, Rescue, etc., it changes it from 10 range to 20 range. That's huge until you remember that Mana is dismounted, and so using the Rescue staff at 20 range is actually not as huge as you think it is, because in order to profit off of that, Mana has to be 20 tiles ahead of whoever you're pulling ahead. I think it could potentially be fun to use. Maybe it's more broken than I think it is, but as there's no warp staff and the only movements, well, there is a warp staff, but it's not range-based, it sends you to a specific castle, and there's no traditional warp staff. Doubling the ranges of Rescue has limited potential. It might allow you to break Chapter 7 by rescuing Leaf, Nana, and Finn away, but you can just give them the return rings anyway, and I don't think allowing Mana to break those things will suddenly make her the greatest unit on Earth. She's still a substitute, she's still a footlocked healer, but it's interesting. Oifi, Strategic, deals +2 damage to enemies at weapon triangle disadvantage. In FE4, the weapon triangle does not give any extra damage, it's just hit and avoid, so Oifi is supposed to be a master strategist. This is emphasized throughout the first generation. Not really in the second generation, because he kind of gets sidelined, even though I feel like he should have been one of the main characters, and that's always frustrated me. But at least giving him this little bit of flavor in the personal skill would help make him feel consistent from Generation 2 to Generation 1. Because in Gen 1, he is constantly remarked upon as like a strategic genius, and this is a way that strategy would benefit him. Dermot, Honorable Duel. In a combat where both units can attack, give self and opponent +20 hit. This is just Diamon's skill, but the Pitfalls wiki said that Dermot really likes honor and refuses to engage in fights that he feels he's not acting with honor. So that's also the reason that Diamond has that ability, so I just wholesale lifted it. And the reason I don't feel bad about it is I gave Tristan, his substitute, a parallel skill. So Tristan gets Contagious Insecurity. In a combat where both units can attack, give self and opponent -20 hit. I'm not gonna lie, this skill sounds awful and totally unfun. But Tristan's supposed to be super insecure. In fact, in one of the only substitute conversations he has, he talks about how he feels insecure and how terrible that makes him feel. And there's a little bit of gay undertones as well, which we're not going to dive into that. But I thought it would be funny to be like, yeah, he gets the Arthur thing, where Arthur's bad luck is contagious, only it's insecurity that's contagious. And it gives everyone, like both him and his opponent, -20 hit. It sounds terrible. Like, rip consistency. We're playing FE6 now. Fuck you, I guess. Lester, his mother's son. When Lester is healed by a staff, he gains +1 strength, +2 speed, and +4 luck. So, yeah, I let him get extra rallied by any healer, even if it's not his sister. This does stack with his sisters, so you can give him, like, bonkers stat boosts by healing him. But also, it's Lester. He kind of needs the help, and I think even with this skill, it doesn't make him baller. Modern Mind's gonna be mad at me for saying this, but Lester is a bad character. Or, at the very, not a bad character, but he's a bad unit. Character-wise, he follows in his mother's footsteps, and I felt like paralleling his sister with, you know, her mother's daughter, his mother's son. It's fun, and it makes them work together well, as well. Which, FE4 loves it when siblings get close to each other. DMA, and that's Lester's substitute. Inferiority Complex. Higher level allies within 2 tallies gain +2 strength, +2 defense, +2 speed. So he serves as, he just gives like an aura of super boosts. This would incentivize you to not train him so that he gives the boost to as many allies as possible, because if he stays level 1, anyone above level 1 gets this boost. It makes him easier to kill, and he kind of needs to be near the front lines for people who are doing combat to benefit from the boost. But let's be honest, if you get Lester's substitute, you're not training him anyway. This allows him to be useful at level 1. Let's go, I guess. Julia. Mysterious girl. If she does not have a lover, gives all adjacent allies a lover bonus. And if she has a lover, she grants her lover the lover bonus, even if she is not adjacent. This is mostly just a meme reference to the fact that it is incredibly hard to get Julia a lover. You can theoretically get Julia and Seliph to be lovers through abusing the jealousy glitch. But then you're doing incest. You're using glitches to do incest, and that's bad. I'm gonna take that bold stance that incest is bad, and FE4 kind of agrees with me. Half the time, sometimes. But yeah, lover bonuses allows people to get crits and gives basically a charm bonus specifically to the lover. So Julia giving essentially charm and crit to all adjacent units. Kind of cool. And if you do grind her up to be a lover, because she has 0 love growth, but you can get the +5 anyway, being able to give her lover bonus, even when not adjacent, just has to be on the map. Seems like, I don't know, a decent payoff for that. Fee, Romantic Yearning. Gains lover points with units 1 tile away as if they were adjacent. I originally was going to give this to Sylvia, because it felt very in character for her, but then I thought, no, that's horrific. That's how you get, that's how you get Corporal Forsetti. That sounds horrible. So I decided instead to give it to Fee. Fee is, according to the Pitfalls wiki, a hopeless romantic. So I felt like Romantic Yearning fits her. Femina, Swap. Can swap places with an adjacent ally. Swap is a generic but useful movement skill. I do not think it is the best movement skill. That's probably reposition, although Smite is also in contention. It depends on what you need. But giving a flyer swap potentially helps, especially when you have footies that you want to help keep up, and could also help her since she can't take advantage of road tiles. Arthur, Superior Spellcraft. If the opponent has a tome equipped, luck divided by 2% chance to half the opponent's res. This is a mage who is a mage killer. Ahmed, God of Wind. Wind magic is treated as effective against flying units. This is just because Ahmed starts as a wind mage and he needs something to make him good. Wind magic is often effective against flying units, but not in this game, and now it is if you're using Ahmed. Johalvir, Weapon Insight. For the purposes of calculating critical hits, weapon is treated as if it has double the number of kills it actually has. For those who are not aware, if weapons get 50 kills in Fire Emblem 4, they give the critical skill, and I believe it's a base skill percent, and then plus 1% for every kill over 50. So this would allow Johalvir to kind of become a Berserker Light of just like getting a crit bonus if he gets a good crit weapon. This also stacks with you pass crit weapons through the generations, and Lex's Brave Axe is actually attainable on the map where Johan and Johalvir join, so it would just be potentially a way to get extra payoff for the investment that Lex puts into the Brave Axe. The name is the same name that Linden's is, but the effect is, while similar, because it gives crit based on the weapon, not the same, just because of the way crit mechanics work in FE4. I felt like it was an adaptation. Johan, Blacksmith's Friend. The Blacksmith costs 50% to use, and stacks with the Bargain Band to a total of 25% to use if you have the Bargain Band. Pretty self-explanatory. There's not really a character reason for it, but I wanted a skill that interacts with the Blacksmith, and Johan and Johalvir, basically their only characterization is being in love with whoever the female sword twin is, whether it is Larsai or Radni. They are just hopelessly in love with her. since she is not a main lord, I thought it would be kind of weird to make the personal skill tie into them. Even though I had, Alec and Noish tie in with Sigurd, and I had Finn tie in with the various people related to him, they're closer to main character status, so it felt appropriate to do so. And end of the day, this is just kind of a subjective, fun theory crafting thing, so that's my logic, and if you disagree with it, sorry. Shannon, role model. Adjacent units have a luck % chance to proc Astra. This is kind of an FE4 reference because Shannon teaches Astra accidentally, and the implication was that Shannon would have been able to teach it on purpose, potentially. But this is also just kind of fun. Give an adjacent unit Astra. Okay. Sure, sounds fun. Patty, empty your pockets. Has a luck % chance to double the stolen gold. This is because Patty sort of owns being a thief, as compared to Do, who just pretends, such and such fell off a truck. Patty's approach is, we need to get all of the money we can for this war effort, and I'm not above stealing it. I'm not going to pretend that I'm above stealing it. And I think that's baller, and I think that stealing extra money is baller because theft is based. Daisy, sneaky pickpocket. Steals when attacked, even if she does not counterattack. She doesn't need to be hit, she doesn't need to, deal damage. She can just steal by getting into combat with someone. And, don't really know if this fits Daisy's personality. I couldn't find any information on her personality. She's kind of just a thief who exists. But, there's only so many thief skills you can have, and I was kind of happy that I even came up with 3 that fit with the thief class, because giving them a combat skill felt like it would be kind of wasted. Leaf, Prince on the Run. If unit moves 8 or more tiles, gains plus 30 avoid until next action. So notably, this is until next action, so it cannot stack. If you dance, you lose it. You can't gain plus 60 or anything. It's obviously much easier to accomplish once you've promoted into a Master Knight, but theoretically with road tiles you can get there unpromoted. This is much more flavor over function, because plus 30 void is a lot, but you have to move 8 tiles to get it, and there's oftentimes, once Leaf is moving 8 tiles, he's often just doing it to be a rescue bot. But yeah, I thought it's fun. Nana, Thracian Healing. When using healing staffs, speed % chance to heal twice. Does not consume an extra use. This is a Thracia reference because staves can double in Thracia. In Thracia, it does consume an extra use to accidentally double with a staff, but I think it's still pretty cool. Jian, Thracian Perseverance. If using a healing staff at 50% or less HP, will heal the unit twice. Does not consume an extra use. So this is also a reference to staffs doubling in Thracia, and it's just a different approach to it. While Nana has a proc chance to do it, Jan is able to do it no matter what, but she needs to be basically in Wrath range. Like, it's Wrath for staffs. It's Staff Wrath. So, yeah, Staffer with Wrath, but for healing. Wrath Nana is confirmed, but it's Jan, the substitute. Ares, Lionheart's Son. When within 3 tiles of Seliph, grants both units plus 15 hit and avoid, and grants self plus 5 crit. So this is a combination of Alec and Noish's skills. My theoretical, my idea is that Gen 2 units would have better personal skills than Gen 1 units almost across the board. A lot of them have mirrored versions of, their parents or their counterpart. And since Ares kind of serves as both the left and right hand of Seliph, I thought I would give him both the left and right hand skills, and also give himself some crit because he has the crit skill. Lean, Private Show. If exactly 1 unit is within 3 tiles, Lean and that 1 unit gain plus 20 hit and plus 20 avoid. So this is the inverse of the big crowd one from Generation 1. It's just 1 unit, but it is a bigger boost. Well, I mean, it's not bigger than the ceiling, but it is bigger than just 1 unit would get with Generation 1. Layla, Public Show. All units within 4 tiles of Layla gain +3 hit and +3 avoid for each unit within 4 tiles of Layla, stacks with Charisma. Layla naturally has Charisma, which grants units within 3 tiles a bonus. This does 4 tiles, and it is much like in Generation 1, it builds off of how many units there are around. I thought about potentially a special dance of some sort as a personal skill, but in the end I determined that was too powerful, especially since you would then kind of always want to get the dancer with that skill, and that would make, the pairing versus substitute thing a little bit weird and unbalanced. Tinny, not your victim. Wrath only requires 75 HP instead of the normal 50%. So, yeah, Tinny is sick of being victimized by her horrible family, and so her wrath is going to trigger more easily. It felt very in character, and also very fun, because wrath is a fun skill. Linda, God of Thunder. Thunder is treated as effective against cavalry and armor. This is supposed to parallel Amid's skill. I felt like being effective against armor as a magical unit is kind of meh, because you kind of are dealing a lot of damage against armor regardless because of their low res. So I threw it in on top of cavalry. It's kind of like Thani from FE10 in that the armor effectiveness is nice, but the cav effectiveness is what you're here for. Faval, anything for gold. Luck % chance to gain 500 gold upon killing an enemy. This is just Anna's skill, but I feel like it fits him, because the idea is that Faval is doing what he's doing, which is working for the bad guys, because he needs to get gold for the orphanage, and anything for gold. Hiya! Notably, unlike Anna's skill, since you can't share the gold, this is something that purely benefits Faval. Asalio, Disdain for Nobility. Deals +1 damage for each 10,000 gold below the 50,000 cap in his inventory, which means that he gets +5 if he has exactly 0 gold. Asalio hates the nobility, and that's the reason that he's fighting to protect the orphanage, even though he's working for the nobility. It's kind of confusing. Again, blame the Pitfalls wiki if I have some deep lore wrong about the substitutes. I don't know substitute deep lore. But it's the inverse of Beowulf, and potentially stronger, because that means you can spend money repairing stuff and not have to worry about screwing yourself out of the bonuses from having a bunch of gold. Said, Magi Protector. When guarding a castle, deal +1 damage and take -1 damage. This is mostly going to benefit him as a green unit, but you could potentially have him guard a castle in the following chapter during the 3-headed dragon assault. And I think it's pretty nice. Flavorfully, he's there defending the castle, defending the people. I think it works for him. Hawk, Magi Tactician. When using offensive staffs, magic is treated as 2 points higher than it actually is. So for those who don't know, in FE4, in order to target a unit with an offensive staff, your magic stat needs to be higher than their resistance stat. There are some bosses in the endgame with incredibly difficult thresholds to meet, but Hawk is able to meet them at base if he has the magic ring and a lover support from specifically either Tinny or Linda, whoever is in that role in your army. And this is kind of a reference to that, and kind of just, I wanted something for Hawk, and I couldn't really think of anything else. Corporal, Divine Protection. If attacked when unarmed, deals 50% of the damage back to the foe. Corporal gains experience as if this were an attack. Corporal is the S unit of this game, but he starts out as an unarmed class, so it's incredibly hard to grind him up. I thought that this is just stolen from Fates. I think it's Azama's ability, different name. It's like Divine Retribution there. But yeah, this kind of helps. I specifically said that it gains EXP as if it were an attack, because that's not how it works in Fates, and that always frustrates me. Charlo, Divine Punishment. Status conditions inflicted by this unit last extra turns. This is mostly because he gives you the Berserk Staff, but it would also apply to things like Sleep and Silence, and I think those are the only 3. Hannibal, the Shield of Thracia. If unit takes an action or waits without moving, gain +5 defense, +5 resistance until next turn. This was originally going to be Arden's, and I was going to name it Guard Duty, but then I decided Pursuit was a funnier meme, so it ends up being Hannibal's because he's the only other armored unit in the game. However, since he is supposed to be the Shield of Thracia, and he's mostly there to guard castles and stuff, I felt like this was a fitting skill for him anyway. +5 defense, +5 res is really good for an already tanky unit, but the cost of not moving probably makes it not worth it unless you're like in a choke point or guarding a castle. And last but not least, Altena, the Spear of Thracia. If unit moves full move, gain +3 strength, +3 defense until next turn. This is just straight up better than Sigurd's ability, but I think that's okay because Generation 2 is gonna have better skills. I kind of just determined that. I kind of just decided, harder maps, you get better personal skills. It's not like it's competing with Sigurd's because Sigurd's dead. But yeah, Shield of Thracia, Spear of Thracia, Hannibal and Altena, kind of mirror each other, just in the names, not obviously in what they do. Although I guess kind of in what they do, because Altena gets the boost for moving, and Hannibal gets the boost for not moving. Is this blatant Wyvern favoritism? You bet your ass it is. But I fucking love Wyverns, so deal with it. Anyway, those are my, I would say, theory crafting, just sort of hypothetical FE4 personal skills. FE4 is not one of my favorite games, I'll, put that out there, but I had a lot of fun planning these out and sort of having the unique mechanics of FE4 blend into personal skills, which is one of my favorite parts of Fire Emblem. I love personal skills and I hope that they maintain them. I know that Shadows of Valentia, the only remake we've had since personal skills were introduced, doesn't have them, but I don't think that that necessarily means that they will rule them out for the future. I think they're very popular, and I think that they are a fun way to integrate character moments into the gameplay. And, some of these might be a little bit too powerful, like tweaking the numbers is probably ideal, but I spent more time thinking about how they would reflect the story and the unit flavor more than how to make them exactly the power level that they should be. If there is an FE4 remake, I'm imagining some things will be changed, and as such, some of these skills just would be nonsense, but like I said, that would be far too much theory crafting for a single video, and yeah. Let me know if you liked this sort of thing. If you would like this sort of thing on a different game, perhaps, go ahead and suggest them. I'd be happy to dive into the casts of some of the other pre-FE15 games and theoretically what personal skills those units would have that interact with those games' unique mechanics. And if you are hungry for someone else's interpretation of the FE4 cast, I asked my good friend Jacob to make a video of what he thought all of the characters' personal skills would be. So go ahead and get that insight as well. It's linked in the description, and I'm going to put it in the end card as well. And yeah, don't forget to leave a like, leave a subscribe, and let me know if you like this. Let me know what you would have people's personal skills be. And if you want me to do this again with another game, just go ahead and let me know that as well. Bye-bye! Love y'all!